Hi friends, today I'm going to teach you Kubernetes manifest file. So here we can write manifest file. We need to create nano practice.yaml. You need to give extension like YAML or YAML. Okay, extension should be like this. Okay, I'm writing this manifest file for creating objects. So what are the objects? So we have a lot of objects. We have deployments, we have pods, we have services, we have ingress, like that we have a lot of objects. So create all these objects, we need to use a manifest file. So how to start this manifest file? First we need an API version. Okay, how do we know API version? For that, okay, let me close this window, let me get out of this window. Okay, first we need API version, right? So for that, kubectl API resources, enter. Okay, here you can see, let me clear this once again. Okay, let me run this command again. Okay, here you can see these are the these are the objects. Here below this name you can see these are the objects which we are going to create in this session. Okay, and this is the API version. Okay, and this is the short name for object. Okay, this is the kind for this object. Okay, so now I'm going to create a deployment. Okay, so this deployment is my object. So here you can see this is deployments. Okay, what is the API version for these deployments? Here you can see this is my API version. Okay, and what is the kind for these deployments? This is my kind. Okay, this is my kind for my object. So now let me start my manifest file. First we need to clear this. Okay, let me open a file called practice. You can give any name here, and the extension should be y.yaml .yaml. Okay, now we need to start manifest file by writing API version. Okay, what is my API version for deployment? Apps slash v1. So for my deployment, this is the API version. If we use a services, we need to provide other API version. So what is the kind deployment? Already we have seen, right? So this is my deployment. I'm going to create this deployment object. Why I'm creating deployment particularly? So actually I need 3 pods. Okay, I need 3 pods, and these 3 pods should run in a single node. Okay, I have a cluster. This cluster contains only one master node and one slave node, and I want to create 3 pods in that slave node only. Okay, so I want to create these 3 pods by using a deployment object. Why I'm using deployment rather than using pods? You can use pods also. You can use pods for creating pods. Here in the place of deployment, you can use pods. Okay, you can use pods, but I'm not using pods. I'm using deployment. Why I'm particularly using deployment instead of pods? Because why? Because if you use pods, it will create pods. No problem. We won't get any problem. But unfortunately, if you delete your pods, or if the pods are getting some issues, pod will not work properly, right? So in that case, pod will be deleted, or you won't get your expected result from pods, and you can't access your pod. So in that case, you won't get access the application properly, right? So it may create some problem. It may create some problem for users, so they won't able to access this application properly. So to solve all these problems, we need to use deployments instead of using pods. Okay, so that's why I'm using pod deployment. Okay, so that's why I'm writing manifest file by using deployment object. So that's why I have written deployment in the kind section. Okay, now next we need to use metadata. Okay, in this metadata we need to write what is the name of this deployment. So here I have provided deployment, but we need to give some name for this deployment, right? So for that we need to provide some name. Okay, what is the name? You can give any name. I'm giving Nginx deployment. Okay, you can give any name. I'm going to create Nginx pods, that's why I'm giving Nginx deployment. You can give any name, there's no problem. Okay, now I'm going to give a labels. Okay, I'll explain why I'm giving labels here. Okay, so what are the labels? You can give app. any name can give here. You can give any name here. Okay, app nginx, or you can give any number of labels. Here I'm taking env environment. I'm going to create this deployment in production, so that's why I'm giving production here. Or you can give like which team, for suppose it is development team. So these are my labels. Okay, now I'll explain everything, don't worry. So why I'm using labels, why I'm using metadata, so I will explain everything. Okay, now I'm using spec, means specifications. So here in this we need to provide replicas. Okay, replicas. How many replicas we need? I need 3 pods, so provide 3 here. If you need a 10 pods, then you can provide 10 here. Okay, but I need 3 only, so that's why I have provided 3 here. So I need 3 replicas. So 3 pods will be created in my node. Okay, that's the meaning of replicas. Okay, now I'm going to provide here match labels. Okay, now here you can provide. So here let me open one thing so that it can be very useful to you. So I'm going to quit this manifest file here. I haven't written completely. I'm going to quit this file here. Before writing this file, I'm going to show you something, so that will very helpful to you to understand this manifest file. Okay, so let me close this file. I will write this code. Okay, no problem. So before that, I want to show you something. So first we need to see kubectl explain. Okay, deployment. So I'm creating deployment object, right? So type deployment. Okay, it will show you some fields, like here you can see API version, kind, metadata, spec, and status. So if you observe in the manifest file, I have written API version, kind, metadata, spec, right? So from these fields only I'm writing manifest file. Many of them are getting some doubts. So how can we remember all these things, API version, kind, metadata, spec, like that? We have a lot of fields, right? So how can we remember all these fields to write manifest file? It doesn't matter. So we don't need to remember all these things. So instead of remembering all these things, just remember one command. This one command is sufficient for writing manifest file. Okay, so kubectl explain deployment. So your complete manifest file will contain these 4 fields only. Okay, API version, kind, metadata, spec. In API version, we should write that version of the object. Here my object is deployment, so the version of this deployment is app/v1. Okay, if you use services as my object, then this version will change. Okay, so like that we write the API version in this field. Okay, in kind field, what we will write? In kind field we will write the object to name, what the object which you are going to create. Okay, here I'm going to create deployment, so my kind is deployment. If you are going to create service, then you need to provide service as your kind. If you want to create pod, then you need to provide pod as your kind. Okay, that's it. Okay, now in the metadata field you need to provide the metadata of your object. Here my object is deployment, so I'm going to create the metadata means data of data. Okay, which kind, suppose here I'm using deployment, right? So in the metadata, what we will write? We will write the name of the deployment and the labels of the deployment. Like that we have a lot more things to write in the metadata. Okay, so where can I find all these fields? Here we can see only metadata, right? But there is no only one metadata here we are seeing, right? But we need to write a lot more things in the metadata. Where can I find all these things? So we can find all these things by using this command. What is that command? kubectl explain deployment dot. So this is the deployment, right? In this deployment we have 4 fields, sorry 5 fields, but in every field there are subfields. Okay, so that's why I'm using dot. Now I want to see the subfields of metadata, so I will provide metadata here. Now you can see the subfields of metadata. You can write all these subfields in the metadata. Okay, see, this is my resource metadata. Okay, my object, it's not object, it's a resource. So this is my resource metadata. Under this metadata we can write annotations, cluster name, and we can write creation timestamp, we can write deletion timestamp, grace period time seconds, and we can write finalizers, generate time. We have a lot of things here. Here you can see labels. So I have written labels, right? So you have seen that manifest file, I have written labels, right? So like, and here you can see namespace. You can write all these things under the metadata. Okay, so like that we write. Okay, now let me see one more thing. Kubectl already we have written, right? Let me take that command. Okay, so these are my 4 fields. Okay, now I want to see the subfields of spec. So how can we see that? Go to deployment, type spec. Now you can see the subfields of spec. Okay, here you can see this is my command. So under spec, what are the subfields? What are the subfields it contains? Here you can see minimum ready seconds, past, progress, deadline seconds. Here replicas. Here you can see replicas and selector. Okay, strategy. Okay, like that we have a lot of subfields in that spec, and I want subfield of selector. How can we get? Now I'm going to deployment dot spec dot selector. Like that we can see what are the subfields are there. Okay, so by using these commands we can easily write manifest file. We don't need to remember all these fields, all these resources. Okay, we need to create pod. For that we are using deployment. For creating deployment we need to use some features, so we don't need to remember all these features. We need to use these commands to get to know all the fields, right? So now I'm going to start again my manifest file. Okay, see here what is my manifest file name, practice.yaml. Let me get into this file, nano.practice.yml. Okay, so now see all these fields are, you have seen, right? Spec, replicas, match labels, name labels, everything you have seen, right? Okay, now 3. Now here I'm going to use selector. In the selector, sorry, so namespacing is very important here, otherwise you will get errors. Okay, the selector I will use match labels. In the match labels I will provide app nginx environment as production team dev. Okay, I'll explain why I have written labels and match labels, so don't worry. Now after this we need to provide template. Okay, in this template what are the fields we need to mention? We need to mention what is the container you are using. You can observe here I have shown you deployment.spec, right? And also I have shown deployment.spec.selector, and with that command you have seen all these fields, right? All these fields you have seen. So like that deployment.spec.template you will get a lot of fields. Okay, so in this template what are the fields we can write? So we need labels, right? So here I'll provide my label name as app.nginx environment production team colon dev. Okay, I have provided labels. Okay, now in this I will provide spec also. Okay, in the below under template also we can provide spec. Okay, this spec is for, sorry, here this spec is for deployment and this spec is for pods. Okay, in the spec we can provide containers. So what are the containers you are going to pulling from your Docker hub? So I'm taking my image nginx. Nginx, any version you can here, you can use anything here. Nginx version. For suppose if I use 1.17, you can 1.17 or any version you can use. Or if you want to use the latest, you can type latest. Okay, so I'm using latest. Now I want to give a name for my container. So name, it is nginx container. Okay, Now I want to give a port for my container, in on which port we are going to expose our container. Okay, so for that I'm going to expose my container on container port on 80. So here I'm going to expose my container on 80. Okay, i'm going to pulling my image from Docker Hub. My image is Nginx. I'm taking the latest version. Okay, all these fields I'm going to write in spec. Here you can see the spec is for pod only. Okay, so all these fields are for pod. Okay, here you can see, here also you can see spec. This spec is for deployment. Okay, now I'm going to explain all these manifest file. Okay, here I have provided API version for my deployment. So this is my object deployment, and I'm going to provide name for this deployment. That name is Nginx deployment. Okay, here I have provided labels. Okay, here also I have provided match labels. Here also I have provided labels. Why I have provided all these labels? So to explain this, we need a little bit a knowledge on pods. So how can we create pods? For suppose, I have created some pods, and my pod is deleted. So my pod is deleted means I won't access my application properly. So to resolve this issue, we don't need to lose our pods. Even though if my pod is deleted, we need to get back that pod. Okay, for that, to get back all these pods, we need replica set. Okay, this replica set will create the deleted pod. Okay, for suppose my desired quantity of pods are 3. Now one pod is deleted, so currently I have 2 pods. So these 2 pods are not sufficient. My desired quantity is 3, right? So I need third pod also. So to create the third pod also, we have to use a replica set. So here I have mentioned replicas as 3. So it will create a replica set. That replica set will create a desired quantity of pods. Okay, so to create the desired quantity of pods, we need this replica set should identify that pods. So to identify that pods, we need labels. Here my pod specifications are these. Okay, and I have given a label for my pod. Here I have given all the labels for my pod. Now here in this replica section, we have mentioned match labels, right? These match labels and these labels should match. Then only this replica set will create the deleted pods. Okay, otherwise this replica set will not create deleted pods. That's why I have mentioned match labels here. So these match labels should match the labels in the template section, right? Okay, now why I have provided labels here also? So why I have provided labels here? So for suppose my replica set has deleted, my replica set also deleted. So if this replica set also deleted, then which resource will create the deleted pods? So replica set only has have to create this deleted pods, but here my replica set also deleted. Then which object will help here to create pods? So that's why here I have provided labels. Here this deployment object will help us to create the replicas, the deleted replica. So for suppose I have my replica set, and my replica set has deleted, my replica set is deleted, and this deployment will again create that deleted replica set. Okay, so like that this deployment will help us. So how it will identify? Here I have provided labels, right? This label should match with this match labels. Then only this deployment will create replica set. Okay, so like that these labels are useful. So I think I have explained everything here, and here you can see I'm exposing my container, my Nginx container on the 80 port. Okay, now let me save this file. Okay, see here, this is my manifest file. Now I'm going to apply these changes. kubectl apply -f practice YAML. Here you can see my deployment file is created. Okay, now let me see the pods. kubectl get pods. Okay, three pods are created. Here you can see age 13 seconds before these 3 pods are created. Here the 3 pods are in running state. Okay, let me see this complete data of these pods. So to see all these the complete data of pod, we need to write this command kubectl describe pods. Okay, so you will get the complete data of all these 3 pods. see namespace is default and the pod name is deployment. Here you can see the code. Okay, the first pod. Okay, this is the first pod which is in namespace, default namespace. Okay, which is started at this time. Okay, and which is created on this node. So I have only one slave node, so on that node this pod has been created. Okay, here you can see the labels app, nginx, environment, production, so and team, dev team. Okay, and IP address of this pod. Okay, for every pod there will be a unique IP address for every pod. Okay, and you can see this container ID, and it every pod will fetch the image from a docker, and this docker image will have an ID. Okay, that is ID. Here you can see this is the container ID, this is image ID. So we will get container. Okay, we will get container from image. Okay, so for container we have container ID, for image we have image ID, and the image is nginx. Okay, and we have exposed that container on 80 TCP. Okay, so we have started that on this date. Okay, so like that we can see the complete data of the pod. Okay, so I have all the data of these three pods. Here you can see. Okay, and now, okay, let me see all the resources or all the objects. Kubectl cat all. Here you can see three pods, and this is my default service, and this is my deployment object. Here you can see replica set. So we have written replicas as 3, right? So it created a replica set. Here you can see desired 3, current 3, ready 3. So that's it, guys. So if you have any doubts, please do comments, and if you like this video, please share this video to your friends. Okay, please do subscribe my channel. Thank you so much, guys.